And the next question comes from our friend Matthew Murr. Do you think the $6 billion, well, I want to caveat that a little bit with the rumored $6 billion investment. It has not been, I don't believe, officially announced by Disney, but do you think the $6 billion investment might revitalize the audio animatronics on some attractions? I think what Matthew Murr is referring to is kind of the really bad shape that a lot of the animatronics are in in Splash Mountain. They're in bad shape, but it's kind of
Small World and Pirates of the Caribbean too. I'll include those in because they're in bad shape as well.
Even Disneyland, because Disneyland Pirates just went under refurb.
It did, but the the pirates chasing the women, a lot of those turntables aren't even working anymore. And in Small World, a lot of the dolls, a lot of the the moving figures and so forth, they are static. So it's not just limited to parts to Splash Mountain, but I think I know where you're going with that specifically.
Yeah, well, and Small World has been a problem for years because of this holiday overlay where they staple gun the lights to the facade every year and they rip them off. I've always been a stickler for that. And I know my key holders, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry in advance. But I would rather them not do the holiday overlay if it means destroying the facades. If they can't do these facades and respect them and get them on and off without destroying them, I'd rather not have it done. I've said the same thing about the castle with the dents and the bumps and the destruction that occurred on our castle because of the holiday overlays. I always said that years ago. I was making videos about this saying, like, I'd rather them not even do the overlay if it means that we're going to have a beat up castle at the end of the day. Same thing with Small World. They destroy this facade every year with the lights and all that stuff. I'd rather not even do the holiday thing if it's going to ruin the facade that we've had since the 1960s. End rant. That's for me personally, I get really frustrated with that. And I think the Small World issue has a lot to do with those holiday kind of overlays. But to Matthew's question, like, I think for the most part, I think that, like, when it comes to the animatronics, I think Disney does a very good job at maintaining them. I think the Splash Mountain thing is because it's on its way out. I went on that on July 17th and it was like in really bad shape, but kind of expected that it's going to go under the knife very soon. Disney's not going to spend any money on that attraction that they don't have to spend on it. Yeah, because they're probably going to replace a lot of that stuff in there or repurpose it and what have you. So they're not going to spend a lot of money to sort of Band-Aid fix everything before it goes under the knife. But overall, Matthew, I mean, I don't really know where that $6 billion investment is going to go. I'm assuming it's going to go towards like new attractions, maybe new lands. Who knows? I think it's more likely it goes to that. But I do hope they set aside some to kind of refresh and maintain and give the current stuff some TLC. I hope so. George, I'll go with you. What do you think about that? $6 billion. Is it going to help the audio animatronics? Not so much. What do you think?
I think, honestly, I mean, some of it might go for the audio animatronics, like for the ones that really like dire need help, to keep going through. But I also feel like, as much as I'm an audio animatronic type of guy when it comes to attractions, as opposed to LED screens, I think as far as like a business standpoint, Disney is starting to kind of furlough themselves away from that notion because it costs so much money to build those and to maintain them and fix them. So so to put all that money into something, I could see where Disney kind of is thinking outside of the box of saying, okay, not to say make it cheap, but to make it in a way where we can kind of utilize these funds and spread them around where it's not. Because if you take, for instance, the Navi River Journey, they have the phenomenal shaman that's phenomenal AA. I mean, it's breathtaking, but it's like, all the funds for that particular attraction went into that audio animatronic, and the rest of the attraction is okay, but you can kind of see where it all went just for that one audio animatronic. And the ride's very short, but just to get a glimpse of that character is, especially in person, it's one of the most breathtaking best audio animatronics that Disney has ever made, in my personal opinion. But I mean, it possibly could be. I think it would be more so if they had anything left over. But I think that they're going to make it like a bigger investment into the parks than just kind of fixing up audio animatronics that they already have.
I agree. What are your thoughts, Dre?
This CapEx has usually followed the trend of maybe not necessarily throwing that money back into the revitalization of attractions and so forth. It usually takes the form of like both of you suggest, kind of new attractions, new experiences, and so forth to expand these parks and resorts. Not necessarily, revitalizing old ones, which I think is kind of a shame. I mean, look, Splash Mountain, that whole thing, that's a really kind of tricky one because obviously that attraction is likely to be going under the knife very, very soon, and there are things preventing them from maintaining that attraction to the level at which it should be, and that's been going back for years. Again, once the Disneyland Resort implemented these kind of fall protection rules, it has really made servicing Splash Mountain effectively far more difficult, and that's why we usually see these kind of like annual refurbishments where Splash Mountain goes down January to like March or something like that, and when it comes back up, it looks far better, but it's not necessarily maintained to the same degree as some of the other attractions in the long run. And that's kind of an unfortunate situation, and I do hope that will be rectified with Toyano's Bayou Adventure. We will see. As far as like these other attractions that we mentioned, Pirates of the Caribbean, Snow White, Small World. From what I understand, a lot of that has to do with a kind of a myriad of factors. One is obviously the labor market is a little bit, it's not necessarily where I believe anybody wants it to be, especially for Disney, being that they require so much of it. And what we're also seeing is a lack of technicians in order to facilitate, some of these attractions. It's kind of all about getting it to run and getting it to run safely, and that's kind of where it stops because there is so much attention between that kind of small crew that has to be kind of spread out over the entire resort. So that's kind of an unfortunate situation there. Also, too, we're seeing supply chain issues affect attractions, not just the operation of them, but some of these parts required for some of these audio animatronics to actually run effectively. I think that's all kind of happening there. And I would love to see that this part of this kind of rumored $6 billion capital investment be thrown back into these attractions to kind of facilitate their maintenance, facilitate ease of operation, to make it easier to maintain these things. Like I remember back in the day, Disney used to have a bunch of kind of workshops, kind of on site or in the kind of peripheral area that were used to kind of maintain these things. I'd like to see those facilities, if they do exist, expanded, or if they don't exist, renewed, because I think that would kind of help with this maintenance problem that they're having right now. Could we maybe necessarily get into the production of parts on site rather than having to wait for some other foreign country to kind of deliver them to these respective resorts? I'd like to see infrastructural improvements on that end. That way, the Disney operation is a little bit more autonomous and a little bit more protected, like insulated from some of these other kind of drastic market forces that we're kind of experiencing right now. That's really kind of taking a toll on these specific attractions. We will see. I do agree, however, it's probably going to be directed towards things that expand the capacity of these parks rather than capital investment into what's already operating.
Oh, can I actually ask you fellas a question? Now, do you believe that the $6 billion is now going to be part of the retheming of Splash Mountain? If this is true to the fact, because we were talking about, at the time when they made this announcement, how if Disney's going to do this, they have to do it right. And in order to do that, they have to have the money to do so. Could this retheme be part, because they're going to make two of them, not just one, they're making two. So I wonder if that is now going to be part of the $6 billion if it does go through for the investment.
That's interesting, because from what Dre, you've been saying for a long time, these attractions are not cheap to retheme. And they're not even identical from what I understand. I haven't been on the Florida version, but from what I understand, they're not identical.
No.
So you're essentially retheming two separate things.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, some of the stuff will overlap, like Tiana animatronic and things like that. But
of course,
there's a lot of stuff you're going to do in Disneyland that you're not going to do in Florida necessarily.
Correct. And from what I understand, they have been kind of foregoing some of their CapEx from prior years in order to kind of save that, what is it, kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of war chest up kind of thing, so that they can go ahead and apply that towards Splash Mountain. Because from what I understand, it is going to be very, very expensive. So I do agree with you, George. I think a lot of some of this will be directed towards Splash Mountain's direction.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And I hope, look, like I've said many, many times, I'm not against the retheme on paper in theory. Just do it right, Disney. I just don't want to see something tacked together like, you know, it looks very cheap. If you're going to retheme it, do it right. And I think it might.
I don't want to go through that breathtaking classic original ride and seeing an old school projector, you know, with a mattress and sheet taped to the wall. It's
right. Exactly. I want to see some quality stuff here, and there's a lot of potential with this IP. That's the frustrating thing. But okay, and here's the thing, and this might be an uncomfortable conversation for some people to have, but I think it needs to be brought up.
Sure.
I think that Disney, there's a potential here that Disney might rest on the laurels. Mm-hmm. We got rid of a problematic IP and kind of rest on the laurels and say, we did our due diligence. We took out Song of the South. We put in Princess and the Frog. We're done.
Yeah.
I want more than that. Okay, it's fine. Take out the problematic IP, but if you're going to replace it with Princess and the Frog, the quality should at least match the previous version or exceed it. Don't just rest on your laurels and say, well, we got rid of the problematic element so we can kind of half-ass this whole retheme. No. If you're going to put Princess and the Frog in there, you have to match the same quality or exceed it. You cannot rest on your laurels and just say, oh, well, Fifth Key, and that's the end of the day. It does a disservice to the people that you're changing this for. It does a disservice to everything that you've kind of talked about with Fifth Key and inclusion, all that, when you go in there and you half-ass it. It has to be quality. Just doing it and doing a half-ass job is not enough. And it's kind of actually insulting. Go ahead, George.
No. I was just going to say, and adding on to what you're saying, and that problematic attraction right now, thanks to our buddy Showcase that has been posting, a 90-minute wait at the Magic Kingdom, which had the highest wait time, even beyond Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and Space Mountain. So of what it's, you know, they're saying now of it being problematic or what have you, and, you know, however you see Splash Mountain, but as of right now, you know, it really must not seem too problematic if it's a 90-minute wait and it's the highest waiting attraction at the Magic Kingdom right now.
Well, look, and this is where it gets interesting because, and this is why we had a contributor like Kenna on recently, right? To get the kind of general public's perspective on this, because sometimes we could get, you know, we can get kind of mired in the details, right? Because we're so in the kind of, I don't know, Diz fandom verse, let's say, right? A lot of GP general public don't really understand why this is happening. To be completely brutal and honest, right? They just want a good attraction at the end of the day.
Right.
So if you're taking an attraction that is, let's be honest here, folks, that is beloved. I'm not saying that it's, you know, to disparage those people for liking this attraction. They just have a lot of memories and experiences tied up with this attraction. To replace it with anything that's not, you know, that's anything less than what it was is a huge failure, objective failure. And I think this is kind of going to be the thing lingering over the heads of some of these creatives working in this space, because you are taking, while I understand it might be viewed as a problematic attraction, it is one that has been historically extremely popular and extremely beloved.
Right.
People are going to expect quality. They're going to expect something that surpasses what was there.
And that's exactly what I was going for, because if it's still considered titled problematic now and it's still popular, again, as OG said, don't rest on your laurels and just say, oh, okay, well, they'll go on it no matter what. No, I mean, if you don't deliver, you know,
it will be worse. It will be worse than doing nothing at all. That's for sure.